for a meal and a flower show.
Was that better, Lorraine?
Better.
All right, we are officially using the EK and kind of doing a new setup with the batch brew. So I'm going to walk you through basically how you do this new setup. So we're going to be pre-dosing our coffee and weighing it out, and we will be labeling these deli containers. So to start, I'll just show you how you'll dose these containers. We've got this high scale here, and this is the one you'll be using. It should always be over there. You just hold that button, it turns on. It should be on this setting. If not, you can hold this button to go to different settings, but you're always going to want to be on this one. And then, say you have some empty deli containers. You can stack several at a time if you want to. You'll hit this button. That tears that out, kind of negates the weight of this container here. And then you'll see what dose we're using for this coffee. You should always start with a 120 gram dose. So if you move on to a new coffee, always start at 120, but you'll probably see the coffee is under here already. So if you're, like here we're using natural Ethiopian, we do have that coffee. We'll be doing 120, that's how you can tell. So, we got the lid there. We have this smaller metal tin here. Get a scoop of coffee. Pretty simple. Weigh out to 120 grams. And that's it. This one's done. Now the tape and a Sharpie should always live right here. And we'll use this other container as a reference, but we'll just write the name of the coffee. In this case, Nat Ethiopia. We'll write EK, the name of the grinder there, and the grind size we'll be using. So in this case, we have it dialed in at 12.5. We'll do the dose, again, 120 grams, and we'll put today's date, 11/2. If you ever notice a coffee thing that kind of didn't get used, and it has quite an old date, we might not be using that, but it's very important we should FIFO these, so I will be moving all these deli containers forward and putting that one in the back. So that's how you pre-dose the coffee and label the deli containers. Okay, so now I'll show you how to use this new grinder and how to make sure you're using the correct grind size. So the first way you can make sure it's on the right grind size, we're going to have a piece of tape with an arrow pointing to the correct grind size. So here you can see it's right between the 12 and the 13, so it should be 12.5. We also have written on here EK 12.5, that's another way to tell. So an important part of using the EK is you want to start it, then you want to have it running while you drop the coffee in. This just helps you get a more right grind size. It's kind of the industry standard for using it. So you have a couple options. You can close this latch here and put the coffee in, start it. Or you can leave it open. Make sure you have a container underneath for the coffee to go in. Start the grinder. Drop the coffee in. So you can hear the coffee's no longer running through. We'll turn it off. But there's still coffee trapped in here. We want to get as much of that out as possible. So an important point, take this knocker and you go. Give it a good couple taps. And that's your ground coffee. Now, it can get quite messy and staticky, so especially after you grind several batches of coffee. So we have this brush, we'll live behind the EK, and we have this handy trash can right in front of it. So you can actually do, just give it a little brush down wherever you see the coffee kind of cling to the grinder. So nice and easy to clean. And that's how to use the EK. Okay, so these will be added to the shift change list, but at shift change, you need to refill all the deli containers for the closer, and the closer, at closing, you need to refill all the deli containers for the opener. In addition to that, it would be helpful for the opener to get them set up. We have 4 of these new carafes we're going to be using. So what you can do, you can line them up like that, and then you can line up your carafes, and that way the opener is just kind of like ready to go, has a nice setup, and that's pretty much the shift change and how to set up the opener. So this one you'll be pretty familiar with, but basically it's just how to use the Fetco. A couple slight changes. So you take the brew pet, you got a paper filter, and something I'm going to recommend we start doing is just quickly walk over to the sink, add a bit of water. Don't add too much or else it'll collapse the paper filter. And then I just kind of spin it around. But make sure the filter doesn't like fold over, and then the water is not passing through the coffee. And also gets rid of the bit of the paper taste. This is our ground coffee from earlier. So we can just go ahead, dump that in. Then put this back in the EK. And then an important step, just shake it, kind of make sure it's level. Slide it in. Be careful not to slam it, because Randy said that can break components in here. So apparently that's a common issue with the Fetco, so just generally place it in. Now here's our new brewer. It's actually a brew through the lid, so you don't even have to take the lid off, which I think is kind of cool. Keeps the coffee hotter if you are running around and can't get to it right away. And then an important step, for these size carafes, they're 1 liter less room than our other ones. You need to make sure to hit the smaller dose. That's the one here at the bottom. I'm going to label this one larger dose, and we're probably not going to use this anymore. So you just hold it, and then if you just move it slightly from this little rubber piece here, the water should fall directly right here. And yeah, you don't have to take off the lid. That's it. Okay, so we're also going to be changing the workflow with our drip coffee. From now on, we're only going to keep the carafes up front. That way we don't have one that's half empty back there, one half empty back here, and then like one sits for like an hour half empty if the coffee gets bad. And this is also a more efficient way so that, we don't have 2 that are half full, we just brew into. So it should be more efficient and better quality. So what I want you to do is line up your carafes here. Make sure the oldest ones are up front. Here's our fresh one we just brewed some coffee in. So I will put that in the back. And basically, pick one up as you use the one in the front. As it empties, you make a new one, then you switch to this one. That way we're always using the oldest coffee first and burning through coffee as quick as possible. A couple more slight changes. So around 12 o'clock, unless it's still really busy, retire one of these. These can go in the dishwasher. You can put them upside down. They clean really easily. Around 2 o'clock-ish, you can go ahead and retire another one. That way you're only keeping 2 of these on. And then when it comes towards the end of close, just try to keep 1 until close. And the bar person will now be in charge of preparing the batch brew coffee for the person working drive-thru. So basically whenever someone at drive-thru has a coffee, they'll run up and they should grab it right here. The bar person should have prepared it for them. And that's the workflow of the batch shop. Alright, so just real quick, I just wanted to show how these fit in the dishwasher. The old ones were like a pain to close, and there were parts you could just never really clean. You just stick it down, place the lid in here, run it like you normally would. Then when you take it out, sometimes these can hold a bit of water, shake it out. But yeah, basically, it will be much easier to keep these new carafes clean. Okay, so one of the last things we're going to talk about is how to dial in a new coffee. So let's say that this Ethiopian's run out. You can tell you're going to have to brew, say, the Guatemalan next, because that's what we have. So how would you come up with a new brew recipe? So remember I said that we're going to use a dose of 120 grams, and it's very likely that we'll never change this dose. Pretty much consider it fixed. So you've got your dose down. Next is figuring out the grind size. So what I recommend doing is start at with the grinder at the 6 o'clock position. So that's right around the 14 on the EK. And what I recommend doing is changing either a half step or a whole step. So going from, say, 14, it tastes a bit weak, maybe it's a bit watery, maybe even a little sour. You know you're going to want to get more out of that coffee. So let's make the grind a little smaller. We get a 13, it's tasting a little bit sweeter, tasting a little bit stronger, not quite there. Maybe you go to 12.5, which is where we wound with this last coffee. Then what I want you to do is go ahead and take a piece of tape and mark the new grind setting, and make sure that you're labeling the correct new grind setting on the deli containers for that coffee. And as you're testing out these coffees, make sure to label these. So you can take an expo marker like these. So let's say we start at 14. That way we can keep track of them, you know, so we're tasting this one. And then maybe we brewed a second one at 13 because this one was tasting a little weak, a little sour. And so this way, you know, you can keep track of which one's which. And then whenever you're done with these, whenever you retire these drafts, wipes off very easily. That's how you would dial in a new coffee if you have to do that during a show.